NetsBoy, so let's hear what he has to say. His name is NetsBoy, he thinks the world is all over when the Nets just can't play.
Well. Look at what has transpired for the Nets. We have a lot to talk about in this episode, a lot to address, a lot to reflect upon on what could go down in history as another classic and one of the biggest disasters in Brooklyn Nets franchise history, or New Jersey Nets franchise history, and Nets franchise history. We have here yet again another embarrassment of the franchise, another black mark on the unfortunate factors that always seem to make this organization a joke. James Harden, I don't even know where to begin at this point. I don't even know how I can try to describe what's going through my head with everything that's transpired. If only someone could have said that trading for James Harden would have been a mistake. If only someone would have said that I don't see this working out. If only someone had said that James Harden is not going to be the solution for the Nets. Oh, wait! NetsBoy said that. He said it over a year ago. And if you don't believe me, just check out the link below. I'll have a link to my 197th episode in which I talked about why I didn't want the Nets to trade for James Harden. And they got James Harden. Now look, my reasonings for why I thought it wasn't going to work out is not 100% true. I actually did not imagine that it would end this way. I never thought that after James Harden made such a big stink about coming to Brooklyn last year, it was just a little over a year ago that this guy did everything he possibly could to get out of Houston to come to the Nets because he wanted to be in Brooklyn. He wanted to play with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. He wanted to be part of this team, to the point that he forced the Nets' hand to give up every draft pick known to man for the next 7 years, to give up two young, talented, fan-favorite players in Jarrett Allen and Karis LeVert, and give up the entire future of this Nets organization. And what does this guy do after he makes the Nets do that by forcing his way to Brooklyn? After 1 year, things aren't going the way he hoped. Things aren't the way he wanted it to be. Things aren't the way that he visualized. And what does he do? Surprise, surprise. The guy who threw a temper tantrum and when he left Oklahoma City, a temper tantrum when he left Houston, so throws a temper tantrum and wants to leave Brooklyn. And the Nets, I mean, we're going to talk about the trade, a little bit later on, because overall I think it actually was a great trade, but we're going to touch about that in a second. But the Nets did what they had to do, okay? Sean Marks did what he had to do. I don't think Sean Marks ever imagined that this was how this was going to end. I know I didn't. I said in my NetsBoy episode, the one about with James Harden, that I foresaw this not working out because of James Harden not fitting with the Nets, and that the Nets were not going to be able to make the three of them work. Well, the reality is they really didn't make the three of them work, but it wasn't really of the fault of the Nets. It was the fault of health and circumstances. I mean, they played only 16 games together in a year, the Harden, Kyrie, and KD. So it's hard to really say, it wasn't going to work out. And I personally believe it actually would have worked out if James Harden just stuck with this team and understood the circumstances and what's going on. I think that this Nets team could have easily won a championship with Harden, Kyrie, and KD, not just this year, but years to come. But no. James Harden, if it's not his way, He wants out. And we saw it in the past, and we saw it just now with the Nets. And look, there's a lot of circumstances that we understand why James Harden wants out, right? The Nets, they've just lost 10 straight. You know, there's loads of injuries. Kyrie's a part-time player. All these things. But, bro, come on, man. You're supposed to be one of the best players in the league. You're supposed to be a superstar. You're supposed to embrace challenges, not run away from them. But that's all this guy does. The minute things don't go his way, he wants out. That is really, really, really disappointing. Really, really disappointing. He's scared. Bro, you're scared. You're a coward, James Harden. That's what you are. You are a coward. Things aren't going your way. You don't like Kyrie's part-time status. You don't like the injuries. You probably didn't like the fact that no matter what you said, at the end of the day, Sean Marks and Steve Nash were always going to listen to KD and Kyrie Irving above you because they were there before and they're the main guys. You didn't sign your extension. You didn't like the weather in Brooklyn. All these things are coming out, these speculations that James Harden just wasn't happy for whatever reason. Whether it was Kyrie Irving, whether it was the weather, whether it was injuries, whether it was Steve Nash's rotation, whatever the hell it was. The minute you didn't get your way, you throw a temper tantrum like a big baby and a coward, and you demand to be traded. And you just completely give up on a team that you made such a big deal about joining last year and made them destroy their future to get you. That is despicable. That is disgraceful, and that is why I never wanted the Nets to get James Harden in the first place, because I knew this guy would be bad news. I don't care, like, have your opinion all you want about Kyrie Irving and, you know, what goes on off the court and his philosophies and opinions of everything. When it comes down to just when he's on the court, he commits. When it comes down to his teammates, I don't want to say he commits because he doesn't fully commit without, you know, but I'm saying, like, he shows that he cares. That's a good way to put it. Maybe not necessarily to the point that everyone wants him to, but he doesn't, he wants to win. He wants to be there without changing his opinion and philosophies. He doesn't give up on the team. When things aren't going well for Kyrie, he doesn't say, trade me, I don't want to be here. He says, what can we do to fix this? That's what a real superstar does. Especially when you have all the talent ready to come back. Everybody on this Nets that's been hurt, other than Joe Harris, was going to come back in the next couple of weeks. That's what everybody's been saying. That's what the Nets have been saying. That's what Kyrie's been saying. KD's been saying. Steve Nash, they all said, hey, LaMarcus Aldridge, he'll be coming back in a couple of weeks. Kevin Durant coming back in a couple of weeks. Claxton coming back in a couple of weeks. When that happens, we're going to be a better team again. Not good enough for James Harden. Not good enough for this guy. He wants to go to Philadelphia and play with Joel Embiid, who, by the way, is amazing and is an MVP candidate. But riddle me this, James. Do you really believe it's going to be different in Philadelphia on the court? Because as great as Joel Embiid is, he's not the same as having both Kyrie and KD. As great as Joel Embiid is, he's also known to be someone who's a bit injury prone now, isn't he? So what's going to happen when Joel Embiid sprains his ankle or has a back situation or a foot injury, stuff that he's had historically throughout his career? And then, James, it's just you and Tobias Harris, who's having a bad year, and the few other pieces you've got. Oh, wait, that's going to be the same situation you're in right now, or you were in, with the Nets. So what are you going to do then, James? Throw a hissy fit, get fat, and demand to be traded to the Lakers? Oh, yeah, trade me for Russell Westbrook. Get me over to the Lakers. I want to play with LeBron and AD. That's the next step. Because that's what this guy does. He runs. He's a coward. And that's why he'll forever be a loser. I can't actually completely say that because perhaps maybe he'll eventually get in a situation where he can win a championship. But in my eyes, he's a loser. Now, off the court, I wouldn't be surprised if Daryl Morey completely caters to James Harden. And that's really what I think this came down to. I think this came down to James Harden realizing he didn't have the say, he didn't have the power. Remember when he's in Houston with Daryl Morey, whatever James Harden said, they did. He wanted Mike D'Antoni as the coach, it was D'Antoni as the coach. He wanted Chris Paul at the time, they got Chris Paul. He wanted Russell Westbrook afterwards, they got Russell Westbrook. Once Morey was gone, James Harden was upset. I think that's a big factor to this. He knows that if he now plays for the 76ers, whatever he wants, Daryl Morey is going to deliver for him. And I think that's what it came down to. I think James Harden just wants the power and to be the focal point and control the organization. And he knew he wasn't going to get that with the Nets because of Durant and Kyrie. That's my personal opinion. I'm sure Harden stated to Sean Marks and Joe Tsai, Steve Nash, what he wanted the Nets to do. And they said, well, take it into consideration, but we don't care. He probably said, make Kyrie get vaccinated. Or let's play this player. Or let's go with this rotation. And Steve Nash and Sean Marks are like, we'll see. But they always will default back to what Kevin Durant wants because Kevin Durant is the main voice in that locker room. And I think that bothered Harden to the point where he realized, you know what? It ain't worth it. I want to be able to dictate what I want to do. And he knew that going to the 76ers with Daryl Morey as the GM, that he will cater to his every desire. And that to me is pathetic. But that's just my opinion. I don't have any facts or evidence about that or sources to confirm that. That's just from what I believe is going on or what I believe happened behind the scenes. Either way, it's a disaster for the Nets because of what they gave up to get this guy, which is what I said was the problem. I said I had no problem with James Harden as a player, what he brings to the table, but what the Nets had to give up, the future the Nets had to give up to get this guy, I said they better win a championship. And the fact that they didn't is really upsetting. Now, that being said, let's pivot to the actual trade, which might actually end up having the Nets indirectly winning a championship. Because as much as I hate everything about James Harden, and enough with that for now, all right? Enough. Good luck to you, James. Maybe I hope you're happy there with Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris and Daryl Morey, kissing your feet and everything like that over there in Philadelphia. Good luck to you. And 76ers fans, have fun being really frustrated with a guy who has superstar potential but just doesn't seem to living up to it. But who knows? Maybe he's going to be rejuvenated and he'll go back to being the guy he was last year. Just like he was with the Nets when he averaged 25 and 10 last year. Who knows? But good luck to you, James. Thank you for the year of frustration that you provided me. And once again, justifying how much I hate you. So thank you, James Harden. Bye-bye. But now let's look at the reality of what the Nets have right now. And that is a legitimate roster that now makes sense. I love this trade. Under the circumstances, I feel like this was the absolute best thing Sean Marks could have done. Sean Marks not only got an all-star caliber player in Ben Simmons, who, let's be honest, is not going to be asked to do nearly as much as he needs to do with the 76ers. And look, I said before I didn't want Ben Simmons. I really still am not thrilled with Ben Simmons. There's definitely other players I'd rather have than Ben Simmons. But under these circumstances, when I think about it more, Ben Simmons, as long as his head's on straight, is everything the Nets need. He can be a primary ball handler. He can control the offense. He can facilitate. He can rebound. He can score around the basket. Oh, and he is an all-time, all-defensive player. 6'10", long, can guard 1 through 5, strong body, an elite defensive player, something the Nets have not had in a long time. And you know what? That's all he has to do with this team. He doesn't have to worry about scoring 20 points a game. He's not going to have to worry about making free throws at the end of the games because you can go and put Kyrie Irving and Durant and all those other guys who can make free throws down the stretch. He's not going to worry about anything. His job is going to be to facilitate, play make, rebound, play defense, and score in the post and transition. He's not going to be asked to shoot threes. He's not going to be asked to do anything that he hasn't done well. He's not even going to be asked probably to be the third lead scorer. He might be asked to be the fourth or fifth scoring option. So this is a great situation, as long as he comes back with his head on straight. But now let's look at the other pieces in the trade. Seth Curry, one of the best three-point shooters in the game today. So glad the Nets got him. I said the Nets needed shooting. Seth Curry is exactly what they need. You know, a 43% career three-point shooter, one of the most, best perimeter players. He's worked on his game. He can hit the mid-range jump shot. He can stretch the floor. He can be a point guard, too, if you need him to be. Just a perfect fit with this Nets team. A perfect insurance policy if Joe Harris doesn't come back. The Nets needed shooting. Seth Curry brings it. Now, obviously, he's not his brother Steph, but it doesn't matter. He's still a very good player and is going to be a huge factor for this Nets team. It's going to open up everything for Patty Mills to become even more dangerous. And when Kevin Durant comes back, it's just going to make everything so much better and easier. And if Joe Harris does return this year, just imagine Joe Harris, Patty Mills, and Seth Curry just running around spacing the floor and jacking up threes. All three of those guys are career 42% or better three-point shooters. That is ridiculous. If that doesn't get you excited just in on itself, something's wrong with you. So whether Joe Harris comes back or not, it's a great move. And if Joe Harris does come back, it's an amazing move because the Nets will have so much perimeter offense that it'll be almost impossible to guard them. And I love it. But then Sean Marks is smart and says, what's the other problem that we've had this year? We're not being able to shoot the ball. We also can't get any damn rebounds or have any interior defense. So what does he do? He says, give me Andre Drummond. Now look, I'm not a big Andre Drummond fan. Never have been. I always felt that he's one of those guys who thinks he's better than he actually is, thinks he has some kind of offensive game, and believe the offense should have run through him. At least that's what he was when he was with Cleveland. But I think he's kind of learned that he has to take a step back and just be a traditional center. Because what does Drummond do well? He's an amazing rebounder. He's led the league 3 years in a row with rebounds, with over 13 rebounds a game. He's a very good shot blocker, averages over, I think, almost 2 blocks a game, and is just a really big body interior defender who also is a lob threat. So this is a guy that kind of fits exactly what the Nets need: interior defense and rebounding. How many times have we seen the Nets get destroyed on the boards? How many times have we seen the Nets not be able to, defend anyone in the post? Nicholas Claxton's great, but hasn't really established himself as an elite interior defender yet. He's just a long athletic body that can switch 1 through 5. So I love this. This fixes the other problem. The 3 issues: shooting, interior defense, rebounding, all fixed while getting a player in Ben Simmons who can basically do everything James Harden can do except shoot the three-point shot and basically make this team flow better. There's going to be less one-on-one. There'll be more ball movement. That's another that drove me nuts with James Harden. I think it's a great trade. And then, of course, they got 2 more draft picks in the deal as well, which I think is fantastic. And one of them is an unprotected pick, though it's next year unprotected. And you would assume that, the 76ers are going to probably make the playoffs, so it's not going to be a great pick, probably in the low 20s. But still, 2 first-round draft picks, Andre Drummond, Seth Curry, and Ben Simmons for a guy who's a piece of crap, who was on his way, who's clearly out of his prime and didn't want to be there in James Harden, and then Paul Millsap, who was thrown in just to, at the end as well, because we all know Millsap going to be traded. And then, of course, indirectly, the Nets ended up releasing and waiving DeAndre Bembry, which is unfortunate because he played pretty well this year. but it makes sense. The Nets brought in 3 players. They only gave up 2. They had to get rid of someone else. And I'm pretty sure it was between Bembry and James Johnson, because I've talked about it before. Bruce Brown, DeAndre Bembry, and James Johnson do the same thing. They don't have much different skill sets. So if there was going to be a player to be released, it'd be one of those 3. Well, Bruce Brown makes too much money. So it's between James Johnson and Bembry. And I think James Johnson brings a little bit more in the way of defensive versatility, though Bembry's probably more better offensively. But I think that's why Sean Marks let Bembry go, because he just kind of said to himself, James Johnson is a little bit more versatile, and we'll go stick with him. There are some people who believe Javon Carter should have been let go. If they objectively look at this team and the balance, they'd understand that that's stupid. Javon Carter's played very well in the few minutes he's been getting. He's also point guard depth. He can shoot the three-point shot, and he's signed through next year as well. So once again, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think you still need some more shooting and third-string point guard abilities like Javon Carter provide. And he's also a good defender. To me, it was, once again, between Bembry and James Johnson. The Nets let Bembry go. So thank you, DeAndre Bembry. NetsBoy, salute to you, because he did have some good moments. I wasn't a big fan of him from the beginning. I wasn't a big fan of the Nets getting him in the first place, but now he's on his way to do something else. And Paul Millsap, whatever, I wanted him gone for a long time. So overall, look, this trade, I think, is really going to help this Nets team. As long as everyone comes back healthy, as long as Kyrie either gets vaccinated or New York City drops the mandate, which it's getting a little bit of momentum. I don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon. I'm thinking maybe by March. That's my theory, that New York City might move away from the mandates. I know New York State is moving away from the mandates, but and you would assume New York City would start following suit in New York State, but that's not necessarily the case. So, look, I think there's a very good chance that come the beginning of March, you're going to see a team of Ben Simmons, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, Seth Curry, Patty Mills, Andre Drummond, Cam Thomas, Nick Claxton, Kessler Edwards, Blake Griffin. I don't even know. LaMarcus Aldridge. I don't even know who's going to be in this rotation when fully healthy. Because like I said, the only player I'm not expecting to see is Joe Harris. And I don't really know what Steve Nash is going to do with the center spot between, Nick Claxton, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Andre Drummond, because all 3 of them should be in the rotation. But all 3 of them literally do completely different things, right? LaMarcus Aldridge is the offensive big, right? Drummond is the rebounding defensive big. And Claxton is the energy, switching 1 through 5, all-around defensive player big and a better lofter. I don't know. I can't believe I'm saying this, because we all know how much I love Nicholas Claxton. I almost think the Nets should just say to Claxton, go back to the G League and work on your offense. Because your defense is getting there, your rebound is getting there. If you have Drummond and LaMarcus Aldridge, maybe you just think about letting Claxton develop his offense in the G League, and if there's an injury, have him come up there, because I don't know if you really need him right now, which is crazy. But maybe Steve Nash will figure something out. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of things to go over with this Nets team. One thing I do know is they did lose 10 straight. It's not going to get any better before it gets, it's going to get worse before it gets better, because they have some really tough games coming up, including the Heat. And then they got 3 games at home, or actually 2 games at home. The road game is against the Knicks, so Kyrie can't play because it's still in New York City. So you're looking at a game against the Heat, which is like the 1 or 2 seed in the East right now, and then 3 games without Kyrie before the All-Star break. And so the Nets could very easily lose 4 more games and be on a 14-game losing streak and become a 500 team coming out of the break. But hopefully, everyone starts coming back healthy, and Simmons joins the mix, and Curry and Drummond can join the mix, because we don't know when any of those guys are coming. I'm hoping that Curry and Drummond join the Nets maybe by the Miami game, if not the game after that. Simmons is going to be probably another week or 2 as he's got to get into shape. Still talk to the psychiatrist that he's been talking to get his head on straight, because, he's still dealing with the mental health issues that he's been having. So he still has to, move into that progression. So he could still be weeks away. So look, we're still probably 2 to 3 weeks away before we start seeing this completed Nets team. But I'm telling you, come March, it's all hands on deck. And I believe that if this team can come back and all these players can come and play from March to the end of the year, this team is going to go on a winning streak, probably go like, 10 and 2 the next 12 games or something, get right back into the playoff hunt and become one of the better teams and maybe finish as a 4 or 5 seed and make some noise and possibly win a championship. So that's my prediction. We'll see what happens. I'm going to wrap up this episode because we're going way too long. I spent a lot of time bashing James Harden. Let me know what you guys think about everything. Let me know what you guys think about James Harden. Let me know what you guys think about how worthless he is. Let me know what you guys think about the trade. Like I said, I think it's a great trade. Under the circumstances, I'm very happy, And let me know what you guys think about this rotation and what could happen with this Nets team moving forward. So let me know everything. Until then, keep your eyes open to the next NetsBoy episode. We'll see what happens. And until then, this is NetsBoy saying good riddance, James Harden, you worthless piece of crap, and signing off.